Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I take this time to thank each and every one of you for watching all the videos that we upload each and every time, and taking your time to subscribe, to comment, and to share our videos. This is a mathematics platform for all those students that are preparing to have examinations at different levels. It will be of help. In today's lecture, we want to look at some of the examples of Bayes theorem. Last time we looked at the proof for the Bayes theorem. This time around, we want to look at how best we can apply the Bayes theorem in solving some of the mathematics problems. So let us start with question number one. Question number one is about in 1989, there were three candidates for the position of principal. We have Mr. Charles, we have Mr. Arnold, and Dr. Saha, whose chances of getting the appointment are in the proportion of 4 to 3 respectively. The probability that Mr. Charles, if selected, would introduce co-education in the college is 0.3. The probabilities of Mr. Arnold and Dr. Saha doing the same respectively are 0.5 and 0.8. Then, what is the probability that there was co-education in the college by 1990? So, last time we looked at how best we can come up with what we call the Bayes theorem. So let us see how best we can solve this equation, this question here, using the same knowledge that we applied in the previous lecture. In case you haven't watched our video, please feel free to get that video and watch what we call the Bayes theorem, such that this one here will become easy for you. However, we shall be able to solve this one here using the previous knowledge, and even if you haven't watched, you will be able to understand fully on how we can apply the Bayes theorem. So let us look at this question here. We are having in 1989, there were three candidates for the position of the principal. Now, to solve this, let us begin by letting we shall let the events and probabilities let the events and probabilities be defined. Let the events and probabilities be defined as follows. Number one, let us have A to denote introduction. Let A denote the introduction of co-education. Let us have E1 to denote Mr. Charles is selected. Mr. Charles is selected as principal. Let us have E2 to denote Mr. Arnold. Mr. Arnold is selected as principal. Let us have E3 denote Dr. Saha is selected as a principal. Coming up with probabilities of E1, E2, and E3. So we shall have probability of E1 will be equal to, probability of E2 will be equal to, and probability of E3 will be equal to. Now, from the given information, they are telling us that Charles, Arnold, and Dr. Saha have chances of getting appointed in the proportion of 4, 2, and 3 respectively. Now, for that case, we can come up with the probability of Charles being selected as 4 out of the total. We are dealing with proportions here, so it will be, for Charles, it will be 4 out of the total, which total is 4 plus 2 plus 3, that is 4 out of 9. Then for Mr. Arnold, is taking 2 out of the total, which is 2 out of 9, and Mr. Saha will be taking 3 out of 9. So it means we have our probabilities as 4 out of 9, 4 out of 9, 2 out of 9, and probability of E3 as 3 out of 9. Getting back to the question, they are telling us that the probability that Mr. Charles, if selected, would introduce co-education in the college is 0.3. So Mr. Charles is being selected first. So if Mr. Charles is selected first, then there will be a possibility of introducing co-education in the college. And that one there can be represented as probability, of introducing co-education given that Mr. Charles is selected. Then, if Mr. Arnold is selected and introduces co-education, we can represent that one as probability of A given Mr. Arnold is selected. And lastly, if Dr. Saha is selected and he introduces co-education, we shall be able to represent that as probability of A given that E3 is selected. So we can now obtain these respective probabilities from the given information. The probability that Mr. Charles, if selected, would introduce co-education in the college is 0.3. So we have 0.3. The one for Mr. Arnold, 0.5. And the one for Dr. Saha as 0.8. So we can obtain our respective probabilities. Probability of A given E1 as 3 out of 10, that is 0.3, 3 out of 10, 3 out of 10. This one here, A given E2 as 5 out of 10, that is 0.5. And lastly, for Dr. Saha as 0.8, which we can easily write as 8 out of 10. So far that is the given information that we have, and we will need to use this information here to answer the question. Which question says that what is the probability that there was co-education in the college by 1990? So we need the probability of A. We need to come up with the probability of A. So how do we come up with the probability of A given this information here? Coming up with probability of A. Probability of A can be represented as probability of A intersection E1 union probability of A intersection E1 union A intersection E2 union A intersection E3. But this one here, since these ones are mutually disjoint events, we can have this one as probability of A intersection E1 plus probability of A intersection E2 plus probability of A intersection E3. From there, we can have what is the probability of A intersection E1 from the given information we are having here. we have probability of E1 and we have probability of A given E1, which means using these two here, we can come up with the probability of A intersection E1, because we know that probability of A intersection E1 is same as probability of E1 times probability of A given E1 from what we call the compound theorem of probability. We can easily come up with this. Similarly, using these two here, we can still come up with the probability of A intersection E2. Using these two here, we can still come up with probability of A intersection E3. So, using the same knowledge, let us come up with the probability of A. Let us come up with the probability of A. So, the probability of A intersection E1 can be easily got by getting probability of E1 times the probability of A given E1 plus probability of A intersection E2 can be obtained by multiplying probability of E2 times probability of A given E2. We can obtain probability of A intersection E3 by multiplying probability of E3 with probability of A given E3. We already have this. We have this one and this one, this one and this. Let us substitute. So, let us substitute probability of E1. Probability of E1 is 4 out of 9. This one is here. E2 is given. A given E2 is here. E3 is given. A given E3 is known. So, for that case, we shall have probability of E1 as 4 out of 9 times probability of A given E1 as 3 out of 10 plus probability of E2 as 2 out of 9 times probability of A given E2 as 5 out of 9 plus probability of E3, which is 3 out of 9 times probability of E3 given probability of A given E3, which is 8 out of 10. Probability of A given E2 is 5 out of 10. Is 5 out of 10. So this one here will become, this one will be 12 out of 90 plus this one will be 10 out of 90 plus this one here will give us 24 out of 90, which you can add and get. This will be 22 and this one here will give us 46 out of 90. 46 out of 90, which we can easily reduce to be 23 out of 45. And this one here will be probability of A. Therefore, probability of A will be simply 23 out of 45. And this one here will be what we call the probability, that there was co-education in the college by 1990. So the probability that there was co-education will be 23 out of 45. And that will answer our question. Thank you so much for keeping on TV Math Hub. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to comment and like. Thank you so much.
Yeah.